here we are, back again with another lovely YouTube video. Got the Schwinn stand, and we're going to install the brakes, cable them up, make it pedalable so I can see how everything feels, and it's kind of the plan for today. That's the plan for today. First things first, I want to decide on brake levers. These are both cantilever sets. These are the original ones, the matching 284 diacomps. They look pretty nice. I want to see what happens when I try to polish these. If they come out really nice and shiny, I'm probably going to end up using these. If they don't and they're still a bit pitted, I might use these Kodas. I've always liked these levers, just because this like gray metallic kind of matches the bike and the tires and everything. So I figured these might look nice. But before we start that, I've got the brakes here. I need to disassemble them, and I've got some Mother's polish that I was recommended to use on this. But I was told to try this stuff, see if I can get the metal a little bit shinier, just with like a clean rag, and so we're gonna give that a shot. First things first, let's get these all pulled apart. Get all the hardware off them, and try to get some polish going. Got all that off. So let's pull these pads off so I can get it just down to the actual metal. And I need a 10. So let me go grab a 10. All right, got a 10. Kind of the idea behind this bike is not only like a vintage touring bike that I will be probably taking a couple trips on here and there, but I really want it to be nice. I want it to be something that I'm proud of, something that I put a lot of work into. It's going to be... Didn't even smash my fingers, but just this is a bike that I want to be as close to perfection as I see fit. I haven't really done a bike like this before where I kind of go balls out, but with the parts that I was given to use on this bike, I think it deserves it. I really want to highlight how wonderful the Velvet Orange stuff looks on here. And I want the little parts to match that, because I mean, we can all agree that the Velvet Orange parts look wonderful. So these brakes have already been cleaned. I'll probably wipe them off with some isopropyl again, just to make sure there's no surface anything on there. And then from my understanding, I'm just going to take the polish and polish. Just rub it as much as I can. I'm going to maybe put these in the vise so they don't move so much. And we'll see how much I can do by hand. So I'm going to set up a little spot in the vise and use an old towel to try not to scratch anything. Start with one of these guys, and want to shake this, I think. If black residue does not appear, stop. It is not a polishable metal. So yeah, seems pretty simple. So just use sparingly is what it says. So let's try this out. Look at that. Looks good. I've got a fresh, clean rag that I sprayed with the air hose to delint it. So hopefully that is helpful. So I'd use a small amount to start. Black residue is appearing. So I believe that this is a polishable metal, which is great. I'll put a bit more on there and try to do like a, maybe like one of these. That is totally working. Look at the difference. That's super cool. Well, I'm going to be at this for a while, so I'll probably run a time lapse and try to get this done. With this process, I found that there was a certain point of like diminishing return. You just keep using the same spot of the rag until you see it like kind of stop working. And then I put a little bit more of the polish on there and it continued to work. So here we are, first one complete. It looks pretty good. It's not quite the same like perfectly polished chrome, but obviously those are used. And here it is next to the original one. I think that is good for me. I'm going to do the rest of them, and it is a long process, so maybe you don't want to watch that. So I'm just gonna do it, and then we'll cut to when I'm all done. All right, so we got all of these polished to the best of my abilities. You know, if I had a buffer wheel, probably be better. I can admit that, but I think they look pretty good. Now, we should turn our attention to these levers. They feel like they're made out of the same metal, probably. So I think I'm going to try to polish these, and if I like the way they look afterwards, I'm just going to use these. I already showed you the process, so let's just skip to these being done. All right, so here we are, about an hour and a half into hand polishing. I feel like maybe if I went and visited Ben down in Denver, he'd probably be able to knock out some polishing wheel real fast, but I'd say that's pretty good. So we're gonna get these brakes on the bike, and then I also reinstalled these with some assembly lube in between the plastic bushings and the bolt, so they're very smooth. It's pretty simple, little mechanism, but it feels really good, and they match the brakes. So I think I'm just gonna use the original levers. So let's get these on the bike, and then get some pads installed and cable them up. With these candy posts, I did do a little resurfacing with some WD-40 and a like a Scotch-Brite pad, so they're nice and smooth again. I will always suggest putting some waterproof grease on here to help stop corrosion and make your brakes feel smoother. I will be installing the brakes with these little standoff bolts that came with the front rack. Super nice, so you have your brake tightened down with this, and then you'll have the rack tightened down with the nut on this side. Figured I'd clear that up before I install them and I get questions. Feel like that's correct. Genius. I promise I know what I'm doing. I feel like there should maybe be a washer. There are washers in the kit. I did not check. So I'm going to put a washer in between the bolt and the brake. That's going to go on like that. Nice and tight. Beautiful. I don't know what it is about these original brakes that are so pretty. They're just very aesthetically pleasing for this style of build. I could have easily tossed on some V-brakes or some new cannies or really anything I wanted, but I think having a good mix of original components and new components is important for a build like this. Maybe it's a stylistic approach, but functionality-wise, old cannies feel super good, especially paired with their long levers. So I don't see any reason to change them right now. For these rear ones, I'm just going to be using standard mounting hardware. I tried to get 2 matching ones that are already shiny to match all the other shiny stuff. Can't forget to put some grease on there in the hole. I wonder if you can hear all the noise at the bar next door. I guess I'll find out when I'm editing the video. There's many children next door for some reason. Not sure why there are children at a bar. That's a question for their parents, of which I am not. These do look at home here. I'm going to say that a million times. I just love the look of these on this bike. Again, it's the details that matter. In the last episode, I kind of half-assed explaining how to true a wheel. And if you like that, I'm going to now half-ass explain how to install brake pads. Cannies are some of the harder ones to get right. You can unhook your springs. I recommend that, but this one is a little tight. I'm going to set them so that they are about the mechanism here. It's kind of hard to explain, but this arm, imagine drawing a straight line from where the pad is being held and where it's being pulled. I want that to be perpendicular to the rim for maximum power. I think there is science behind that. And I want the pad to be contacting the rim at that point. So about there is where I want it. And before I have it cabled, I like to do like a loose pad fit, just so I know that they're going to stop at a good spot. And then once it's all cabled up, I'll dial in precisely where that pad's hitting on the rim. But for now, that's about what it needs to look like. Cool. So we've got that done. We need to toss these levers on. Because they're so long, I know that I'm going to run the shifter on the inside of the brake as long as it clears this this guy here, the brake body, I guess it's called. So I'm going to slam those forward because I like to have room where my grips go. I'm just going to stick these guys on. really appreciate all the comments, letting me know, how you've been liking the series so far, thoughts on stuff. Talk to me about merch. That's pretty cool. I appreciate that. I am in the works making some shirts, and I'll be launching, I think, a separate brand. It's not just Mullet Mechanic, because I want it to be more than just me. I want to be able to employ artists and it not just be my name that their art is attached to. Not necessarily a collective, but, I don't want it to just be about me. So we're going to grab our brake cable here. This beautiful velvet orange, silver, metallic braid brake cable kit. That's what they call it. I believe this is technically compressionless. I could be wrong, but I do know that bikes that I've felt in the past with this style of cable on it have felt really good. And to make canties set up well, compressionless housing is nice to have. So the first thing we want to do is put one end in the brake lever, like so. And then we want to find our canny hanger, which I am now realizing I did not install. So let's install that. If you're unaware of what a canny hanger is, it's basically a cable stop for the cantilever brakes. Sometimes they're built into the stem, which is what originally was on this bike, but obviously we've changed from the original stem to a threadless adapter. This guy is a die-comp one I pulled off another bike, but it matches all the other die-comp stuff. So we're going to replace one of these headset spacers in here with our canny hanger. I'm guessing we're only going to need one spacer. Again, I'm still waiting to find the right headset for this. So for now, I did throw new grease in this off camera. Sorry I did something off camera, but oh well. Get over it. It happens. But one thing that's important with these is to try to have them as centered as possible, which this one is not currently. That looks a bit better. So you want it in line this way so that when you have your brake pull, it's even on both sides. Snug that guy up, and it looks pretty good. I actually like the way that the headset ones look a bit more than ones that go through the stem sometimes. You can also get ones that come off your fork, but to do that you need clearance, and then your whole triangle thing gets really tight. And if you know what I'm talking about, you'll understand, but this is the best way to do it, in my opinion. I'm going to put this guy back in here, and I think I'm going to even run a little bit more stack than I had before, just to bring the bar height up a little bit. Let's get these set up straight. Nice. Those look pretty good. I can always perfect them later. Now we can cut our brake cable. So you want some actual bike cable cutters. These are the SRAM ones. They're good. There's a million brands of them. You can use any of them. So this cable stop does not take a ferruled cable. It does not fit in there. So I'm going to start on the brake side, and I could run it here, or I could run it over the bars. I'm going to leave the cable slightly long because there's a possibility that I swap these bars out. Get a nice clean cut there. And I want to make sure that there's an opening for our cable, like so. I think for these bars, I'm going to run it over the top of this. Probably could have gone even a little bit longer, but for now, that's that. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. Going to the rear brake is a little bit more involved because there's a hanger all the way back here, and it looks like that little ferrule that I lost in a previous episode is missing. So let me try to find a solution for that. So after about I don't know, a non-insignificant amount of time, I've determined that that original piece is lost, which is great. You know, nothing really goes to plan. So I've got two options here that could work. I've got, they both go to, let's see if you can check these out. They both go to old brake levers. But the problem is the space back here, there's not very much space for the cable to bend. So this one is the right size to take a ferrule, but the ferrule doesn't want to bend very much, and I need a little bit of bend. But this one fits perfectly in the slot on the hanger. And the other one that I have fits the cable perfectly without a ferrule, but this diameter is slightly too big. So I'm going to try to shave this down a little bit and use this one. I've chucked the tapered end into the drill relatively tight, and I'm going to take a file and spin the drill and try to file this down a little bit. All right, I've also filed the face of the drill. Hopefully that was all in the shot, but it's smaller, so let's see if it fits. So here is the problem area, and look at that. Fits perfectly. You can see there's not much room from here where the clamp is for the cable to go around, so that's why I need as much bendy cable as possible. So let's see if this will run. So I'm once again going to run from the already ferruled side because that's from the factory and I could never do better than that. Go through all of our nice braze-on full cable mounts, which I think make this specific brake cable really stand out. Looks very pretty. Run it all the way through. Try not to scrape anything off. I've got a good bit of extra cable, so if I mess this up, hopefully I can do it all over again. So now what I normally do is I twist the bars and I feel the cable here. If the cable moves, it's too tight. And I just tighten it up until I feel the cable move when the bars turn. And I think that's probably as close as we can go here. And it kind of matches the distance that this one sticks out as well. So we're gonna go with that. And I'm gonna trim it to what I believe to be the correct length. I'm gonna eyeball it up here and make a cut. Cut smooth. I'm going to put on our newly created ferrule. And Yeah. That just barely works. I wonder if there was like a better way to do this. Maybe if I flip the hanger upside down, but normally they're facing up. Maybe I'll look into using a different hanger in the future, but for now, that's going to be what it is. And that is as tight as the cable can be and as loose as I'd like it to be. So let's get to the actual cabling process. Most brakes that have barrel adjusters have little slits in them. You want to line the slits up with the slit in the rest of the lever. These Velvet Orange kits are nice enough to include both cable and housing. So we've got our brake cables here, and one shorter, and that is for the, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. One end of the cable is for a flat bar style lever, and one end of the cable is for a road style lever. So you have one cable for both, and they just put two tips on it, and you just cut off the tip that you don't need. That's thinking ahead. I really like that, actually. Shout out Velvet Orange for doing something interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a double tipped cable like that, but normally I also just use the cheap Jaguar stuff. So we're going to run this cable through our housing. Went through pretty smooth. And then we're going to check to see if it's kinked anywhere. If the lever pulls smooth, which it does, we should be good. If you were to pull the lever and it had a bunch of friction, that normally means that either your housing's too short or there's something inside the housing that's keeping your cable from pulling smoothly. But that feels probably as good as it possibly could. Now we need our nice little straddle cable here. So that's going to go like this. And I'm going to reinstall this side onto the brake. I really like how these straddle cables look. Very classy. Now we're going to check where this is at full power. And our cable could be a little bit shorter than that. There is math behind setting these up, triangles and whatnot. I don't know if I'm smart enough to explain all of that. I just kind of know it by eye at this point. But that looks pretty good. So let's tighten the cable down. People ask me for tutorials on how to do things, and I feel like I'm the wrong person to do that. I could talk bikes all day, but telling you how to do it perfect, especially with this kind of stuff, I think just takes practice. So if you're scared, just go and do it. But that looks pretty good. The triangle could maybe be a little bit lower, but I'm going to start with there, and can always trim it to size later. We're now going to use our straddle cable hanger, I think that's what these are called, to set the cable height. I like to run the smooth side out. It doesn't make a difference. Visually, they are different. I don't think it matters which way you run it functionally. And I don't know if there is technically a correct way to do it. This is just the way that I do it. So what I normally do is I pull these tight, and I check to see where my cable sits height-wise. I kind of eye that up. I tighten this guy down, and I notice at like full pull when it's hitting, it's about right at the bottom cup here. So I'm going to take it back off the actual straddle cable, and I will then adjust this with the cable coming from the lever taut to be a little bit lower than that. So right around here-ish. Just like that. Somewhere in that range. I'll tighten that down. Pull the straddleable cable off the brake. Stick it back on here. Connect it to said brake, and then feel the lever. Wow, way too loose, right? Pulling all the way to the bar. I think that this cable could be shortened a little bit. So I'm going to pull this off. Adjust this to make the overall straddle cable shorter. I'm just going to pull that a little bit. Canny brakes are a game of guess and check. I'm sure some older mechanics have ways to get these perfect every time just with their eyeballs. But I'm not perfect. And that has a nice short throw. We'll need to even out that brake pull tension, but that feels pretty good. So that's where we'll cut our cables to now. I realized that that entire shot was very out of frame, so I'm sorry for that. Still learning how to do all this, but this triangle here, when the brake pulls, you want this to be as perpendicular as possible to the rim, and this to be at a certain angle, which I believe is supposed to be 45, or like, I like to think of it as like an equilateral triangle, so this side and this side and this side all have the same angles on all the corners, if that makes sense. You can tell I'm pretty close there. Obviously the pull is off, but I'm gonna trim the cables now. I don't like super long overhanging cables. We're doing some gold accents on this bike. So I've got some gold cable nips, tips, narps. They're called something specific, but ferrules? Cable ends. I think that's what they're called. That looks nice. Nice little detail. And now let's talk about the issue of it not pulling in the center. We can see that when we pull the brake, this side moves and this side doesn't. That means that this side at its resting position is closer to the rim. So we'll want to check a few things. Their actual spring tension, where the wheel sits, if it's sitting sideways or crooked in the dropouts, or your dropouts are bent, it could be sitting closer to one pad or the other. And you also want to check the distance of each brake pad from the actual brake. Oh, and if this is sitting in the center or not. So the first thing that I like to do is pull the brake. Okay, it's rubbing on this side. And you can see that this is moved over away from center. If we move this to the center and pull, it's rubbing even worse. So this one's holding way more tension on the brake than that side. So what I tend to do is to try to bend these little springs in. Some newer Canties have little set screws to change the amount of spring tension. These don't. So it's a little bit more of a tedious process to get that working. The other thing that we can do is to take a something long and skinny like a 4 mil, unhook this spring and stretch it. So hopefully there's a little bit more power. With these brakes, it is a pain in the ass to do. So let's see. It's a little bit better. Double check the wheels sitting center. Looks pretty center to me. But it's still not pulling evenly. Almost forgot a step. Before we go too far now, we want to try to get these pads lined up with the rim nicely. You're going to need your 5 mil Allen key, and I believe these are, nope, they're 10s. Put your Allen key on this side, your 10 on this side. You're going to loosen up the bolt on the back, the nut, and then we're going to tip the brake lever while putting pressure in towards it. And line it up with the rim as best you can. These older brakes do not have as much adjustability as a modern Canny brake. And that's right, I said modern Canny brake, because there are those. So now we can see when we pull, it's not hitting the very top of the rim. So the whole rim track's not getting used. So we need to angle that slightly up a little bit to get it in there. And this is 100% the most tedious task ever. Probably going to speed up this process because I kind of explained it. Probably not enough, but there are people out there that are way better at explaining things than I am. So if you want something to explain to you, you should probably go watch a better video than mine. That also helped with the pull. So this is going to take me forever. It's really just a guess check. Tighten, look at the angle when it hits. Tighten, look at the angle when it hits. Loosen, tighten, back and forth. Bend spring, angle pad, yada, yada, yada. I think I said the basics, so I'm just going to run through this off the camera. This is why I normally don't do the cabling process on camera, because it's just tedious. So I'm going to lock in, I'm going to get this done, and then I'll show you what it's supposed to look like when it's dialed in. All right, we're back. I've got both of the brakes, even pull front to back, even pull left to right. Brake pads hitting as well as I can get them to hit. And now I can pedal the bike.
and brake, which is very exciting. This is kind of all I had planned because I am an idiot and I left the shifters at my house, and I've been here for a long time and I only realized that right now. So you know, we could put on the racks actually. Let's put on the racks. I feel like this is going to be a short video if I don't do something else. I'll show you how I like to install racks and see if that's more effective than me trying to show you how to do brakes. So I am lucky enough to work in a bike shop where we have lots of tools and things. I like to install racks on a floor stand because you can see what angle the bike will sit at and then get the racks to match that angle. So we're going to be working down low for a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and install the front rack first because I already have the little studs in there. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece of kit that Velo Orange sent over. This one is pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to put the little bolts on the end. I'm then going to find where the rack sits flat, or as flat as I can get it to sit. And honestly, it is very close if I just bolt those down. And then we're going to take our, I think this is technically called a mount strap, a strap mount. I think I'm gonna run it. I only have a front hole and that's threaded. So I'm gonna run it from the front hole and I'm gonna run it in the down position. And then I'm gonna bend it up to match the angle that this will sit at and down to where this needs to sit. So I'm gonna try to do my best to explain how I find this angle. These aren't all the way tightened, but this is flat. And so I'm going to eye it up with the hole, and then I'm gonna find where it kind of meets the rack around here. So right around this hole here is where I wanna start bending it that way. So I'm basically gonna bend this whole piece this way, so this will be flat along this side, so it'll sit flush with the rack. So I'm gonna pop this in the vise and give it a quick bend. I got this bent. We're gonna pop a little straddle cable out of the way. Put this in here like so. And that is damn close. I actually overbent it slightly. So I'm just gonna bend that back a little bit. And if that was flush, it's still a little high. I think that's actually perfect. So I've got a bolt. This fork has a threaded hole in the front. So I'm just gonna use this bolt to attach this, and that fits ultra flush on the mount. And then I'm gonna bolt this to this, and you know what? I'm actually gonna cut this last hole off because it overhangs a little bit. So let me do that real quick with a hacksaw. So I've got this piece cut to length, and I'm gonna go ahead and install everything, tighten it all down, and I'll run time lapse doing that. So, got this guy mounted. It is level.
as level as I could get it by eye.
And that thing is
Solid, no noises, which is awesome. This is probably the nicest rack I've ever mounted. You know, there's other styles like this, but it's finished so well, all the brazes and the welds and all the extra hardware to mount stuff to. This whole system down here is wonderful. Huge shout out to Velvet Orange for making this rack so painless to install. Let's move on to the rear. So here's the rear rack that we've got. With this specific frame, we've got two mounting holes, upper and lower. And then also different different points to mount it to on the rack itself. Interesting. Well, the frame's straight, that's good. I like to slam my racks, get them as close to the tire as possible. And I like if it's the same height as the front. And it looks like the best way to do that is to run it on this third notch here. Yeah, that looks about right. Third notch. And then we've got little standoffs that'll be going up here. So I'm going to bolt in this here and then run the standoffs here. Pretty simple. A little bit of tire clearance. I'm not going to be running fenders on this bike. And it looks like that's about the same height as the front rack. So we're going to go grab the hardware and screw that down. Lovely hardware. Very nice, polished, clean hardware. I like the look of these bolts. So I always do the sidemost bolts first because it'll hold the rack in a specific position. So I'm going to take a big step back. Actually, I think it needs to come up one hole because it's a little bit lower than that front rack. So let's fix that. All right. Got that moved up one notch. Now we're going to step back and level it out. Which actually looks quite good. So these are the standoffs that come with this. They're going to be mounted like so, running this way. This rack matches the lines of this bike so wonderfully. I'm going to put a washer on this. Start tightening these down a little bit. Try not to scratch the rack as I just did. Classic. And then I'm going to put the hardware in this end. And don't snug this bolt up yet. Going to do the other side as well. So I think this rack looks best with all the lines on the rack being perpendicular. Nope, parallel.
I know what I'm talking about, I swear. I just want to adjust these so that it's all together. Tighten that down for now. This one's already pretty spot on. So I'm going to tighten that one down. Get it just so tight. Look at that. Got a nice, sturdy rack. I could carry someone home on that. Very sturdy. We shall now stare at what we have done and determine if it's good or not. That looks beautiful. The front rack could be angled down, tilted forward ever so slightly. But that is possibly the most beautiful bike I've ever built. So, I think we're done for the day. I messed up and forgot the shifters, so we're not going to be able to set up shifting. But I think we got a good bit done. Polished the brakes, both levers and calipers. Got them plumbed in, all set up. Got the racks on, nice and pretty. Yeah, that's it. Huge shout out to Velo Orange for making this build possible. Really appreciate you guys sending over all these parts for me to make this beautiful bike with. Shout out to New Vintage Bikes on Instagram. That is who makes this saddle. I'll have him in the description. And I've got another thing coming from him that is going to match this bike perfectly. And another shout out to Ultra Dynamico. These tires, they look beautiful. Can't wait to ride this thing. In the next episode, we'll get everything done and we'll go for a ride. So stay tuned and let me know what you think. I'll see you guys next week for another YouTube video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That helps greatly, I think. I don't really know the algorithm yet, but if you could do that, that'd be cool. Let me know what you think of the bike, and I'll see you guys next week.